Hi, Rob Walker here. It's been a while since I've done a video blog, years actually, I think. I'm recording this one for Tim Harper, Samwise7RPG, because he asked me to and I wanted to oblige. I recently typed out a response to one of his videos, which itself was a response to somebody else. And in Tim's video, he said he had trouble, he was wrestling with the always say yes, never say no philosophy of running a role-playing game. Now, Tim has been playing since he was a little kid. He's been playing pretty much his whole life. I haven't. I played a little bit in college. Most of my role-playing experience has been post-college. However, I do have a huge background in theater. I grew up doing theater. I grew up writing plays and being in plays and doing performance projects. My major area of study is in theater performance and directing, and as a matter of fact, I'm recently in a local production of The Importance of Being Earnest. So that's partially what attracted me to role-playing games, is because I like the idea of playing when I'm not, when I wasn't involved in a production, that I could use my imagination and create stories in a different way than I hadn't before. And with other people who might not be interested in being in a play or something like that. And because I came to role-playing games from theater, the philosophies of theater, and in particular improv, have always been at the foremost of my mind. And one of the major tenets of improv is yes and. So for those of you who might not be familiar, I'll explain it. I'm sure in the Venn diagram of theater nerds and role-playing game nerds, there's quite a bit of overlap, but there might be a few of you who don't have experience with it. So if you've ever played the game Freeze, two people enter a circle of people, and one person basically takes the initiative and starts a scene, right? So they might walk in, two people are there, they've never, they haven't talked beforehand, and one of them says, "So, you're here for your checkup?" That would indicate that the person who said that is the doctor and the other person is the patient. So then the patient, now that they have their scene setting, could say, "Yes, are you my new physician?" So they have accepted the premise that was given to them and they've built upon it. So we know that this is a doctor's office, that one person is the doctor, the other person is the patient. The patient has indicated that this doctor is new to them. So then the doctor might say something like, "Yes, Dr. Chalmers, moved to Texas. I'm here and I have plenty of experience. Let's get going." So it's you're accepting what is given to you and you're building upon it. So these two people who have not talked about the scene before are now creating a world together by accepting what is given to them and building upon it by giving something else. And that is kind of my philosophy while running a role-playing game. I'm very much into the yes and. Tim said he wrestled with the idea of what if you have one player or multiple players who aren't into the setting. They keep throwing out ideas that don't quite work with the setting. And if it really, really, really doesn't work, I fully agree with Tim that you should have veto power and say, that's not really what this is about. If this isn't for you, perhaps maybe the next game will be, or maybe, maybe just go along with this for now, just try it. But before the veto goes on, if it were me, I would try really hard to try to incorporate this person's ideas. Tim gave an example, and I responded to it by typing it out, but I'll kind of give the crux of it here verbally. So Tim, in his video, talked about how you might be running a Thieves Guild game where everyone wants to play a thief, but you have one player that wants to play a city guard. Well, that doesn't quite fit with the thief, the thief theme. And I responded by saying, well, it doesn't, but it could. Like if you look at it like it's an Ocean's 11 film, you could have this city guard be a part of the group. Maybe they're an inside man. Maybe they're the person who came to the Thieves Guild and said, "Hey, I have a job we could pull," because they're into a local mob boss for a bunch of money. You know, maybe the thieves went to them and are bribing them. You know, there are all these plot hooks that arise from that, from one person not being like the other people. Plus, if you're running a thieves guild, you want all of them to be slightly different and have slightly different expertises, I'm guessing. But that was just one idea, and once again, that's just a thought. An example I always think of when it comes to the yes and philosophy is that years ago when I was running a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, I was playing with my brother-in-law, my sister, and my wife, and I was the DM. And the very opening of the venture, they attack a goblin camp, and I hadn't quite worked out what the goblins would have on them, if anything. And my brother-in-law was playing a thief, and he said, you know, I loot the bodies, what do I find? Well, I wanted to give him something, but I hadn't really thought about it. So I said, you know, you have a few coins, and he wrote that down. And I flippantly said, you know, they have been carrying sacks of goblin shit with them. And he was like, all right, I take the goblin shit. So I was joking, more or less, and then later on we kind of retconned it to where they were trying not to be followed, so, you know, due to camping protocols, they had to pack out what they were packing in, kind of. But he took the goblin crap with him, and was carrying it around throughout the adventure, and then later on, when they were really up against a wall and facing a really tough enemy, he said, I throw the goblin crap. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of had to do some quick thinking, and I wanted to accept this because it was very funny to me. He was being forward thinking, and he was using what was around him instead of just, you know, I have my weapons, I'm rolling for those. No, he was thinking like you would if you were in that scenario. Like, what do I have that I can use? You know, if these other things aren't working, this is what I want to try. And for me to say no in that moment, like that's too ridiculous, would have, in my opinion, brought an ass-grinding halt to a game that everyone was having fun with. And I just wanted to continue that momentum. So I was like, sure, roll for it. You know, give me a you know, these kind of dice, this kind of roll. And he did, and he ended up blinding this monster with goblin poop. And they ended up defeating it in no small part because he had taken goblin crap with him and decided to use it as a weapon. And that is a memorable scene that those players will carry with them forever, partially because it's different than just stabbing someone with a rapier or using the weapons you have. It actually creates a tension and something out of the ordinary, which is the point of yes and. So yeah, I am strong in favor of yes and. I am strong in favor of people who want to run role-playing games or who want to play in them should consider, you know, reading up on improv or reading up on theater and maybe, you know, doing a play or joining an improv group or taking an improv class, even if it's just for fun, because it might open your eyes to different ways to look at the gaming experience. Yeah, and that's, you know, that's just a thought. That's just one man's opinion. I'm definitely coming at it, like I said, from a different perspective than Tim is. He has more nuts and bolts experience than I do. But yeah, I am a huge favor of yes and. I like things to happen, and I like things to happen that I didn't think of as a GM. So when someone comes up with what seems like a ridiculous idea, I am more often to saying, okay, let's do it. Thanks, Tim, for suggesting that I do this, and thank you for your videos. I always enjoy hearing you talk about gaming and your ideas about it. I really appreciate it. And take care.